Okay, and now that our form is working correctly and we've tested that all of our fields and the entered values make it to a form action page correctly, we're ready to do the last step, which is to get PHP and MySQL to actually create a new record in the database. So first, let's go look at our database. Here we are in Northwind. We'll go to the orders table. We see there's about 831 rows in here, so we want to jump to the last page of records and scroll down, and we see that, okay, the last record that's in here is order ID 11079 for the BOTTM customer ID. So when we go to create our new record, the one we create should end up being 11080. It'll go to automatically the next order ID. So now let's go to Dreamweaver, and the interesting thing with Dreamweaver and the server behaviors is that when we want to add server behavior for inserting a record, it doesn't actually do this on a separate form action page, but it adds the insert code on the actual form page that you've created itself. It uses the same page for both functions, collecting the data and inserting the data to the database. And this is a pretty common way of how professional website developers use PHP pages. So we're going to choose our insert record behavior. We see that order form is the form that we're working with on this page. We have a connection to the Northwind database, and the table we're going to be inserting into is the orders table. And now we have all the columns in our order table, and we need to match them up with fields from our form. Well, order ID is a primary key, so we don't insert into that. The database will assign the next value automatically. Customer ID right now is not getting a value, but if we come down here to our value drop down, we can see that we do have a customer field in the form that we can pick, and the customer ID is text. You can see the different options here: text, integer, double, which is floating point if you're going to have any decimals, date if you're going to have a date, and then if you have checkbox fields, you can decide if you want the checkbox to either be a yes or a no. So at the fields, if you have a checkbox, you can decide, do you want to do yes or no. If the box is checked, it'll be a yes, otherwise it's a no. Or you can do a 1 and a 0, or you can do a -1 and a 0. But our customer ID is 5 characters, alpha characters, so we're going to pick text for that. Alright, going on to employee ID. It doesn't have a value assigned yet, so we go to the value drop down. We have an employee field. We'll pick that. Going to the next thing, order date. Now notice order date already says gets value from form.orderDate as date. And the reason this was already set up is that the name of our field on the form, we named it so that it matched the column name in the database. So this is one of the reasons why you never want to use spaces in your column names, because you can't use a space in a field name when you're doing a form field in HTML. And it's a good idea to have your field names in your form match the column names in the database that you're going to work with, because then all of this happens more automatically. So we get required date is already matched up. Ship date does not get a value, because remember, we won't put that value in until the order actually gets shipped. Ship via gets a value from the form as an integer, because those names match. Freight does not get a value. That won't be put in until the order is actually shipped. And then our last fields, ship name, ship address, city, region, postal code, and country, these were all matched up automatically because the names were the same as the column name in the database. Okay, last thing we need to set here is that after inserting, it wants to know what page do we want to go to. And usually what we do here is we have some type of confirmation page or thank you page that will acknowledge that the order has been entered, and sometimes you want to give them a link to go back and do another enter. So we're just going to type in the name of a page, thankyou.php, and we'll create this in just a second. So let's click on OK on our insert record. That has everything created. Now I'm going to click on one of my form fields, and then down here across the bottom I'm going to go click on my form tag so that I can see what happens. And if I look down here in my properties now, I see that my action page has actually changed to a little bit of PHP code, and that was created by our server behavior that says, okay, my form action now is going to be coming from this variable that's set up in the PHP code. And if we go into our PHP code here, we scroll up, one, we can see, keep going. Here we go. Let's go straight to the code view. Here's our code, PHP code, that was created for inserting into the table. So you can see we have our insert into orders, we have the names of columns, we have values, we're going to have a list of values that are coming from this. We use this get SQL value string function around our data. What this does is it prevents people from typing special PHP or SQL characters into our data fields of our form. That would cause problems with our SQL or try to attempt some kind of hacking attempt. So using this method prevents that. That's why it's nice to use the built-in server behaviors to see this basic code. And then if you had to do something more complex in the future, you have this code as an example for how to do it. And then you can see down here at the end, it selects the database, executes the MySQL with the insert statement. So that actually performs the insert. And then here's the code it added for after we've done the insert, what page do we want to jump to? And it uses the header function to add something to the header of the HTML page to say, hey, go jump to this other location. So that's what the gory details of the PHP code looks like. But we've got it all in there, so we can go up here and say File, Save, to save our file. And then now the last thing we need to do is we need to go into our files, create a new file. We called it thankyou.php. Let's edit it. And this is going to be a pretty simple page. We're just going to do a simple message, thank you for entering an order, and then we'll give them the ability to go back to the form page. Click here to enter another order. We'll highlight that text, come down here in the properties to the link box, pull up our list of files, and we will go to our order form file. OK, and then now we can do file, save on that. Alright, so now we're ready to go back to our browser page. We want to come back to here, and we want to make sure that we refresh our read of this form so that it loads the new form with everything in it. We'll keep Alfred's as our customer, and let's make Janet get credit for this order. We're ordering it today. It's needed by next Tuesday. Let's see, if it's needed by next Tuesday, we better pick Speedy Express. And we'll fill all this in. Now, normally in a more complex environment, again, these fields would probably auto-populate by looking up data from the customer record, or if the customer had multiple ship locations, we could pick from a list. But for now, we're keeping it simple, just typing in values. And then when we hit submit, we get our thank you page. It tells us thank you for entering an order, and we could click here to go back to the order page and do another one. Now let's pop over to our database. We'll click on orders. Now we see we've got 832 records, and if we go to the last page, then we can see our new record is indeed 11080 for the order ID. We've got Alpha as the customer. We've got our order date of today. We've got our required date of the 27th. We have a ship via of 1, and this is blue, so we can click on it. If we do that, we see, sure enough, that pulls over to our shippers table and is Speedy Express, the one that we picked. Okay.